So when you find yourselves in a position, based on the appropriate factors, that it's time to go back into production, um, do you see that as happening as it did before, or how will that change, at least in the intermediate time frame, once you do go back?
The things that will change is we'll have more information. We'll be able to answer a lot of what ifs. What do we do if a member of our crew calls in on a Wednesday and says, hey, I'm symptomatic, I'm getting symptoms, I haven't been tested yet, but I think I have it. Well, who did that person interact with the day before? What is our protocol going to be for those people? What if they had direct interaction with some of the actors? How are we going to keep this production going? I think we have to acknowledge that any environment right now, other than locked inside your house, isn't going to be 100% safe. And this is where perhaps my education, because I was a theater major at Middlebury, but I was also an economics major. I was a joint major in both, and I studied statistics. And this is where understanding odds and risk and reward plays into this. I don't know that any situation outside your home is going to be 100% safe, but how do we nudge the odds closer and closer to 100% in our set? Mandatory mask wearing. So what's going to change for us is we're going to become more educated on the issue. We've hired a health expert group that's going to help us oversee our protocols for dealing with COVID, for dealing with the testing, for dealing with our practices in the day. It affects our writing. What used to be 6 people scenes in a small room are now becoming 2-person scenes in bigger rooms, or better yet, outside. So it changes the creative in that way. So we're along a path where we were hoping, as we speak today, we're in early July, we were on a path hoping to be filming by July 21st, and we realized that we weren't ready for that, that we didn't have the testing protocols in place. Not really our fault. I think a lot of places and industries are seeing that this idea of universal, easy, affordable testing that will give you the results almost instantaneously is not really the world that we're living in at the moment. You're seeing Major League Baseball having difficulties getting back on the field as we speak right now, because it's taking days to get test results back. And how good are those test results if all it tells you is 5 days ago you were negative for COVID? That doesn't mean that you're negative in that moment. So we're learning, we're trying to put together all these pieces. We're trying to game plan for what are the obstacles that might suddenly be placed in front of us, and what would we do in those scenarios, so that we're not making quick, rash decisions if those things happen. If a crew member or a cast member tests positive or is symptomatic, it's going to be a logistical challenge, because it used to be pretty simple to plan your shooting days and be able to say, okay, we're going to film this, this, and this. Well, it used to be a point of pride for a lot of actors and crew to come in and work when they were sick. I'm a tough guy, or I'm a tough gal, and I'm going to power through this, and I'm going to do my job because I take a great deal of pride in what I do. Well, now we're very much encouraging people, do not just come into work if you're not feeling well, if you're under the weather, if you've got a cough, if you've got a fever. Let's figure out what's going on there. But that's going to require us being able to change on the fly. We had this plan for how the day was going to go, but now this crew member and this cast member aren't coming in today. What are we going to film instead? What are we, do we have to give some of the material that the sick actor had to a different actor? Do we switch scenes around so that we can preserve that scene for later when they're feeling better? So suddenly this has become a tremendous logistical issue. So, and at the heart of it, we can't ever forget that as much as we want to get these episodes that we've poured our hearts and soul in on the page, writing these scripts, we don't want to do it in ways that's going to jeopardize people's health beyond the normal risks that everyone is assuming in this society today. So we're just trying to educate ourselves. We're trying to learn from other productions that are happening before ours. We're trying to learn what went right, what went wrong. I'm spending a lot of time looking at the various sports leagues as they try to get back on the playing fields or on the basketball courts, and what obstacles are they encountering so that I can anticipate what we might encounter. You know, this is where, when I look back and think about my education at Middlebury, I'm grateful for the liberal arts education I received, because this is just one huge problem-solving exercise involving creative writing, including drama, but including economics, including bookkeeping, including science, including a whole aspect, various aspects of so many things. And the stakes are incredibly high because people's life and health are at risk here. And so, and I want to, ethics, I would say, is another thing that you have to consider in this. And that's an argument that we're seeing happening across the country, that, some people say, well, it's one thing to shut down for safety, but if people can't make a living, and, what is that doing to them? And so I need to make sure that we're not just starting to film because there's an economic incentive to film. We need to make sure that we're starting to film because we feel that we can do so responsibly. And that's a big burden, and it's a lot to think about. Listen, once again, there's two sides of my business. One is the writing side. And by the way, that side has gone uninterrupted during all this. And in some ways, this has been one of the more productive periods of writing in my life. There's been a certain solitude, let's say, that I've been able to enjoy, that's allowed my mind to kind of sharpen and focus on what's important in life and what do I want to write about. And so the writing has gone on unabated. On the production side, I think there is a little bit of a reckoning, because one of the things that this pandemic has caused us to look at is, what is the fewest number of people that we really truly need to film these scenes, to get done what's done. And so when production does resume, we're going to learn that answer. We're going to learn that, hey, we can get by with 15 people in the room rather than 25. And I think that's going to cost a lot of jobs down the line. I think we had sort of grown and bloated a little bit about what we thought was necessary to film. But when it becomes hey, every added person in the room makes it that much more dangerous for everyone in the room, you really start to learn who's essential and non-essential. And that's been one of the great lessons that I think this country has learned over the last 4 months, is the idea of essential and non-essential. And we never really thought about the people who worked at our grocery stores as being essential 6 months ago, but we certainly do now. And I find myself thanking them. So as it relates to my business, I think you're going to see a winnowing. And by the way, this has come technologically in recent years as well, as the cameras become more sophisticated, as more work is really being done in post-production than trying to get it perfect on the day. I think you're going to see a streamlining of production, and I think you're going to see a little bit more of a shift towards being able to do things in post-production. The pandemic has not slowed things down for the most part in post-production, the way things are edited, the way visual effects are done, because those are things done on computers by single people in rooms. But when you're gathering 200 plus people to film each day, that, we're seeing that during a global pandemic, that's a dicier enterprise. So I think there will be some jobs that will go away on the production side when you realize we can do it without. I think you'll see, this will be a little technical for some people, but you'll see things being filmed where rather than, okay, we're going to get the 3 angles, we'll do it once, and then in editing, the cameras are so good, we can take a medium shot and we can turn it into a close-up, right? So one shot can actually give you 2 different feelings once you manipulate it in editing. So I think you'll see more of the work shift to make these shows in post-production and editing with visual effects, and you'll be looking for leaner, meaner, faster ways to get things done in production.
So to your example, with technology affecting your ability to do more in post-production than you might have to do in production, clearly is a great example of that. Is there anything that you would say is completely going away from the perspective of what you do?
I don't think anything is going away. You are certainly, you're seeing a shift where I think things can go away. For instance, at some point it's going to be cheaper and easier to put 250 people in the background using VFX than to actually have 250 people show up on your set, dressed the way you want to have them dressed. You know, having a place, having a bullpen where they stay while they wait for filming to happen, feeding all those people during the course of the day, transporting them to and from set, from wherever your base camp is. So you're seeing technology start to eliminate certain things that are very difficult to do on the day. But we're not there quite yet. And the human eye still, I think, can discern from something that's really happening versus something that's created on a computer. I don't think we're very good at the fakery, but I don't know that we're 100% there yet. But you're starting to see, you know, for instance, a very important job, and I think it'll still stay important, is like location scouting. You have people whose only job is to look for locations to film at, and they're looking for a very specific thing. I saw a very fascinating video presentation about how David Fincher, when he was making the TV show Mindhunters, essentially created the environment he wanted. He didn't find a location that matched what he wanted. He just found this sort of grassy area, and then he digitally added trees where he wanted trees, and he created, you know, it was almost painting after the fact. So I think so you're not going to eliminate location scouts, but it's going to change their jobs. It's going to be less about what's the perfect location that my director and showrunner are looking for. It'll be more, well, where can I find a blank canvas that they can add whatever they want later?
Interesting. How will all of what I'm perceiving, I'm being overly simplistic, but let's say the technology that enables a lot of back-end work to be done to create the final masterpiece that you were looking for, how will that affect what I'll call the front end in terms of screenwriting, if at all?
I think, you know, when you say screenwriting, that presumes writing for film and features. And I have done a little bit of that, but I'm more known as a TV writer. And when you're writing for television, you're always thinking about, well, what can we actually do? We're going to have a limited time and a limited budget. And certainly we do some big spectacular things. Certainly I think we do on SWAT, and TV is capable of big things, but you're always conscious about your limitations. I think what's happening technologically with VFX is we're learning not to censor ourselves, not to just stop and say, well, we'll never be able to do this. We'll never be able to film it. Because at this point, there's almost nothing against a green screen that you can't film and create in a believable way for the audience. So writing for television has always been about, you know, you're an architect of sorts. You're creating the blueprint by which a group of craftsmen are going to come and create something real. That's what a teleplay or a screenplay is. And we used to be limited by the engineering realities that existed back then. And what's changing is that we've sort of lifted the top of the roof off and said, you can go beyond here. You can go here, here, here. And so I think it opens up the screenwriting to all kinds of new worlds, all kinds of new possibilities. And the only thing that's stopping you is your own imagination now, which is something I have to constantly remind myself, because I've been in the business long enough that I think I get in the habit of censoring myself too quickly, saying, oh, I don't think we can do this, I don't think we can do that.